Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Surface. Today, we're diving into a major breaking news story, the recent jury verdict that found Donald Trump guilty on all 30 for charges related to falsifying business records over hush money payments during his 2016 campaign. This historic decision marks the first time a former U.S. president has been convicted of a felony. Stick around as we unpack the legal, political, and electoral implications of this landmark verdict. On May 30, 2024, American history took a sharp turn. A jury in New York found Donald Trump guilty. This marked the first time a former U.S. president faced criminal conviction. It reaffirmed the principle that no one is above the law. The verdict's impact on the 2024 election remained uncertain. It deepened the political divide. Trump's supporters saw it as a conspiracy. His opponents saw it as justice. The long-term impact on American politics was uncertain. The trial of Donald J. Trump unfolded in a Manhattan courtroom. The prosecution presented evidence of hush money payments. The defense argued it was a political witch hunt. The tension was palpable as the fate of a former president hung in the balance. The prosecution's case was built on financial records and testimonies. Key witnesses, including Michael Cohen, implicated Trump. The evidence suggested a coordinated effort to conceal the truth. Cohen's testimony dominated news cycles for days. The defense sought to discredit the prosecution's narrative. They argued the case lacked concrete evidence. They portrayed the trial as politically motivated. The courtroom echoed with accusations and legal sparring. The jury's verdict landed like an earthquake. Trump's supporters saw it as a travesty. His detractors saw it as justice. Social media buzzed with raw emotion. The streets became venues for public expression. The verdict pushed the two sides further apart. Social media algorithms reinforced existing biases. Conservative media portrayed Trump as a victim. Liberal media celebrated the verdict as a victory for democracy. The verdict's ripple effects were felt far and wide. It became a constant topic of conversation. The social fabric seemed to stretch even thinner. The long-term consequences could undermine American democracy. Section 1. Trump, the Teflon. Don, the guilty verdict, a blow to any politician's career, seemed to have an unexpected effect on Donald Trump. Instead of diminishing his standing, the verdict appeared to galvanize his base, solidifying their support and fueling their anger towards what they perceived as a politically motivated witch hunt. Trump, a master of turning adversity to his advantage, skillfully used the verdict as a fundraising tool, portraying himself as a martyr persecuted by his enemies. His campaign rallies, already boisterous affairs, took on an even more fervent atmosphere. The crowds, larger and more energized than before, roared their approval as Trump railed against the deep state, the fake news media, and the radical left that he claimed were conspiring against him. The verdict, far from silencing him, seemed to amplify his voice, giving him a new sense of purpose and urgency. His message resonated with his supporters, who saw in him a fearless fighter willing to challenge the status quo and stand up for their interests. Trump, never one to shy away from a fight, seemed to relish the opportunity to portray himself as a victim of political persecution. He used the verdict to further solidify his bond with his base, casting himself as the only one who could protect them from the forces aligned against them. His rhetoric, often inflammatory and divisive, only seemed to strengthen his hold on his supporters, who saw in his defiance a reflection of their own frustrations with the political establishment. The verdict had inadvertently breathed new life into Trump's political career. His poll numbers, which had been flagging before the trial, saw a marked increase in the aftermath of the verdict. The Republican Party, once eager to distance itself from Trump and his legal troubles, found itself grappling with the reality of his enduring popularity among the party base. The Teflon Don, it seemed, had once again defied expectations, emerging from a scandal seemingly stronger than before. Section 2. The 2024 Campaign Trail. The 2024 presidential campaign trail became a high-wire act for candidates from both sides of the aisle as they navigated the complex and volatile political landscape shaped by Trump's verdict. Democratic candidates faced the challenge of capitalizing on the verdict without alienating moderate voters who might view it as an overreach by the justice system. Some candidates chose to make Trump's legal troubles a central theme of their campaigns, arguing that the verdict disqualified him from holding office again. Others took a more cautious approach, focusing on policy differences and presenting themselves as steady and experienced leaders who could unite a divided nation. The Democratic Party, still struggling to find its footing after the tumultuous Trump years, found itself grappling with how best to address the issue of Trump's continued influence over American politics. The verdict had exposed the deep divisions within the party, with some factions advocating for a more aggressive approach towards Trump and his supporters, while others urged caution and a focus on winning back disaffected voters. Republican candidates faced an even more delicate balancing act. They had to acknowledge the concerns of Trump's base, many of whom viewed the verdict as a travesty, while also appealing to moderate voters who might be turned off by Trump's rhetoric and behavior. Some candidates, particularly those with close ties to Trump, embraced the former president and his grievances, echoing his claims of a stolen election and a rigged system. Others attempted to distance themselves from Trump, focusing on their own policy agendas and presenting themselves as fresh faces who could move the party beyond the divisive Trump era. The Republican Party, once a bastion of conservative values, found itself increasingly defined by Trump and his populist brand of politics. The verdict had exposed the deep fissures within the party, leaving its future uncertain as it struggled to chart a course in the post-Trump era. Section 3. A Nation on Edge. The verdict hung over the nation like a dark cloud, casting a long shadow over its future. The social fabric, already strained by years of political polarization, seemed to fray even further as the verdict deepened existing divisions and fueled a climate of mistrust and suspicion. Conversations about politics, once a staple of American life, became increasingly fraught, often devolving into angry arguments and accusations. Families and friendships were tested as people struggled to reconcile their personal relationships with their political beliefs. The verdict had become a litmus test, a dividing line that separated people into opposing camps. The sense of shared identity, of being part of a larger national project, seemed to erode further, replaced by a sense of tribalism and resentment. The American experiment, once a beacon of hope for the world, seemed to be teetering on the brink, its future uncertain. The verdict also had a chilling effect on public discourse. The fear of being canceled, of facing social or professional repercussions for expressing dissenting opinions, led many to self-censor, their voices silenced by the threat of backlash. The marketplace of ideas, once a vibrant forum for debate and dissent, seemed to shrink, its boundaries policed by those who demanded ideological conformity. The principles of free speech and open inquiry, once cornerstones of American democracy, seemed increasingly fragile in the face of growing intolerance and polarization. The verdict had exposed the fragility of American democracy, its institutions weakened by years of partisan rancor and a steady erosion of trust. The peaceful transfer of power, once a hallmark of the American system, seemed less certain in the wake of the January 6th insurrection and the continued refusal of some to accept the legitimacy of the 2020 election. The verdict served as a stark reminder that democracy is not a spectator sport, but a fragile system that requires the active participation and vigilance of its citizens. The future of the nation, it seemed, hung in the balance, its fate uncertain as it navigated a period of unprecedented division and upheaval. The true weight of the Trump verdict, however, extended far beyond the immediate political fallout. It struck at the heart of American democracy, raising fundamental questions about trust, accountability, and the durability of its institutions. The trial itself, broadcast live into homes across the country, became a seminar on the judicial system, exposing its strengths and weaknesses to public scrutiny. For some, the verdict served as a powerful affirmation of the rule of law, a testament to the idea that no one, not even a former president, is above the law. The system, they argued, had worked as intended, holding a powerful figure accountable for his actions. This, they believed, was a victory for democracy, a sign that its institutions, though tested, remained resilient. The image of the American justice system, blindfolded and weighing the scales of justice, took on a renewed significance. Yet, for others, the verdict did little to assuage deep-seated concerns about the fairness and impartiality of the justice system. They pointed to the fact that Trump remained free while appealing the verdict, his sentence still pending. This, they argued, highlighted a system that often seemed to favor the wealthy and powerful, leaving ordinary citizens feeling disillusioned and unrepresented. The verdict, rather than restoring faith in the system, only seemed to exacerbate existing cynicism and mistrust. The long-term impact of this erosion of trust remained to be seen. Would it lead to further polarization, fueling a sense of grievance and driving people further into their respective ideological corners? Or would it serve as a wake-up call, prompting a much-needed national conversation about the health of American democracy and the reforms needed to ensure its survival? The answers to these questions, far from certain, would shape the nation's political landscape for years to come. The Trump verdict also had the potential to rewrite the rules of American politics, ushering in a new era of uncertainty and volatility. The playbook that had governed presidential campaigns for decades, with its emphasis on decorum, experience, and a certain level of respect for the office, seemed to have been torn to shreds. Trump, despite his legal woes, had demonstrated that a candidate could flout these norms, even embrace scandal, and still maintain a devoted following. This had profound implications for future campaigns. Would candidates, emboldened by Trump's example, feel less constrained by traditional norms of behavior? Would the politics of outrage and grievance, so effectively wielded by Trump, become the new normal? The answers to these questions were far from clear, but the potential for a more divisive and confrontational style of politics seemed undeniable. The verdict also raised questions about the role of truth and accountability in American politics. Trump, despite overwhelming evidence presented at trial, continued to maintain his innocence, denouncing the verdict as a witch hunt and a politically motivated attack. His supporters, echoing his claims, remained steadfast in their belief in his innocence. This disconnect between facts and perception posed a significant challenge to American democracy. How could a nation effectively address its challenges and move forward when its citizens were operating from fundamentally different understandings of reality? The verdict, rather than providing clarity, seemed to only deepen the chasm of mistrust and misinformation that had come to define American politics. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Trump verdict will be its impact on a generation of Americans who came of age during his presidency and its tumultuous aftermath. This generation, shaped by the rise of social media, the 2008 financial crisis, and the growing threat of climate change, had already developed a more cynical and skeptical view of traditional institutions and power structures. For them, the Trump presidency, with its scandals, lies, and attacks on democratic norms, only served to confirm their worst suspicions. The verdict, far from restoring their faith in the system, may have only deepened their sense of disillusionment and alienation. They had witnessed firsthand the fragility of American democracy, its vulnerability to demagoguery, and the corrosive effects of misinformation. The question was whether this generation would retreat into cynicism and apathy, or whether they would be energized to fight for a better future. The verdict had the potential to be a galvanizing moment, a call to action for a generation disillusioned by the status quo. The energy and passion that had fueled movements like Black Lives Matter and March for Our Lives suggested that young people were not apathetic, but hungry for change. The challenge was to channel this energy into constructive action, to build a more just and equitable society that lived up to the ideals of its founding. The Trump verdict was not an end, but a beginning. It marked the end of one chapter in American history, but also the start of a new, uncertain era. The decisions made in the years to come by leaders and citizens alike would determine whether the nation emerged from this period stronger and more united, or whether it succumbed to the forces of division and despair. The future, as always, remained unwritten, its course shaped by the choices made today. The Trump verdict stands as a stark punctuation mark in the ongoing saga of American democracy, a moment of reckoning for a nation grappling with its identity and its future. It has exposed the raw nerves of political division, the fragility of truth in a digital age, and the enduring power of personality in an era of fractured media. The courtroom may have delivered its verdict, but the trial of America continues, its outcome far from certain. The questions raised by this case extend far beyond the guilt or innocence of a single man. They strike at the heart of what it means to be a citizen in a democracy, the responsibilities it demands, and the consequences it can exact, even on its most powerful figures. The verdict is a stark reminder that the pursuit of justice is a journey, not a destination, a constant struggle to uphold the rule of law and hold those in power accountable. As America moves forward, the specter of the Trump verdict will continue to loom large, a reminder of the fragility of its institutions and the deep divisions that threaten to unravel its social fabric. The path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, but also with the possibility of renewal and a rededication to the founding principles that have guided the nation for centuries. The choices made in the days and years to come will determine whether this moment of reckoning leads to a more just and equitable society or further fragmentation and decline. The hope remains that America can rise to the challenge, that it can find a way to bridge its divides, restore faith in its institutions, and forge a more perfect union. The verdict, while a source of division and pain, can also serve as a catalyst for introspection and change. The future of American democracy, as always, rests in the hands of its citizens, their willingness to engage in difficult conversations, to find common ground, and to work together towards a more just and equitable future. The trial may be over, but the pursuit of a more perfect union continues. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive into the jury verdict against Donald Trump and its potential impact on the upcoming 2024 elections. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to be on the surface for more insights and updates. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious.